Okay, video 2. Same hair, same makeup. I'm just going to roll with it. I didn't do all of this for nothing. Not that it looks like I did a whole lot. Nope, it looks like there's nothing on my eyes. But if you look in the mirror there, I look like a drag queen. So it's so weird how that changes. Anyway, I just wanted to do a quick video just quickly explaining what happened with my first battle with cancer. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer 4 years ago. The way it came about is one Sunday afternoon I was sitting on the couch. I think I was chatting to my son. I had my arm up in the air and I was like, oh, it's really itchy under my arm, and I scratched and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this thing? And I felt I had really big boobs, like gigantosaurus boobs. I hated them. I wish I appreciated them more now, but I hated them. And I felt this huge lump and I was like, what is it? Like, I'd never felt it before. There's no itching, no pain, nothing, absolutely nothing. It was just like I had a third boob in there. I'd stopped breastfeeding about 6 months before, so I thought maybe it had something to do with that. Anyway, on the Monday I went to go and see my GP. At the time I was living in Mossel Bay, so I went to go and see my GP, and he said to me that he thinks that it's fibroids, but he's going to send me for a scan and maybe a mammogram, and then we'll have a better idea of what is going on. So in my head, I'm like, oh, well, fibroids makes sense. Something to do with my milk ducts, maybe. Anyway, off we go. I remember it was a Friday that I went for my scan, which happened to be the same weekend that we had decided as a family we were going to go camping. We were going to Sedgefield or something. But anyways, I went for this scan, and then they did a sonar. I'm lying. They didn't do a sonar. That's a lie. They did an x-ray, and then afterwards we did a mammogram. So my boobs literally, which I did not realize at the time, weighed like 4 kilos each. So you can imagine my poor back. But anyway, my boobs were quite hefty, and they put them in this machine and pressed them down like they were a lemon cream, and took some videos and stuff, photos, videos, whatever it is they do. And then told me I should wait on the bed, and about half an hour later or 20 minutes later, I don't know who he is, the radiologist came in, and he said no, they need to do a biopsy, which they did, which I have to say was quite traumatic because I was by myself. I had to lie on my left hand side, and then I didn't see what they did, but they put a needle in after they've numbed it. But what happens is it's actually quite a thick needle with a hollow center, and they push that into your boob, like it goes really fast, kind of like a stapler. It's like bah, bah! And that noise is horrific. I jumped out of my skin, and they did that twice. So they took 2 biopsies. So basically that hollow part of the needle goes in, steals a little bit of that tissue, basically grabs it, rips it, and pulls it out like a panther. And then they send that tissue away. So that night we went to Sedgefield to go camping, and I remember being in the shower and my whole boob was black. And in that moment I was petrified. I was like, I don't know what I thought, but like, I think I knew, I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be good, but it wasn't based on anything, nothing tangible. So anyway, I did spend a lot of time crying, black boob pretty much. We spent the whole weekend, and for the most part I was okay. I had a few moments where I looked at my kids and I'm like, oh, what if it's bad? What are we gonna do? I can't deal with stuff like this. I suppose I've always just thought that I was a weak person, not a strong person. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we got home, and then by I think the Wednesday I still hadn't heard anything, and I was actually going for a tattoo, this one here, the peacock. It was actually an add-on that was being done, that my husband and my best friend had put money together for me to go do this. Anyway, I was on the way to the tattoo parlor, and I got a call from my radiologist, and he said to ask me if my GP's phoned me, and I said to him, not yet. So he said to me, okay, he should be calling you, but I just want to let you know that the results have come back as cancer. And I was like, okay, thanks. Take note, I'm still parked outside the tattoo parlor. So I phoned my husband and I just said to him, okay, the results are cancer. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yep. Serious, pretty serious, not a funny joke. And then I phoned, I believe it was my mom, and I just said the same thing to her. All the while I was still quite calm. Anyway, I was like, I need to hold it together. I need to go and get a tattoo. So off I went inside. I sat down, they were putting the stencil on me, and then I just said to him, I don't really think I can do this right now. And like, he looked at me rather strangely, and he's like, wow, what's up? And I was like, I just found out I have cancer. And his wife came through because she heard me. She was in the office in the back. And she came through and she said, sorry, did I just hear you correctly? And I was like, yep, I have cancer. And I just started to cry. These people that I don't really know were like comforting me. And it was actually like in that moment, I couldn't believe it. And they were asking me questions and I couldn't really give them answers because like I knew nothing. Literally, it's just like, it's cancer and then off you go. And I mean, like, I don't know the whole journey that's ahead of me. Everything, like, you hear it and your first thought is, I'm gonna die. Literally, that's what I thought. I thought, okay, how long do I have left? And on the way home crying, and I'm thinking like, oh my word, who's going to look after my kids and what am I going to do? And all these thoughts just go. Anyway, we landed up getting called in by a surgeon. He was the person who actually called me. We had a discussion with him, and he said to me that they believe it's something called DCIS. DCIS is ductal carcinoma in situ. So what that is they believed that my cancer was just in the milk duct and that it hadn't gone anywhere else. But they also said that my tumor was 5 centimeters big. So I don't know how a tiny little tube like that is gonna fit in a massive 5 centimeter ball, but I don't know. That's what they said. So I'm guessing that's what happened. And anyway, so he said what we can do is we can just do a removal of the tumor, or we can just remove the breast. And without batting an eye and without even a thought, I just said to him, take them off, both of them. I don't want them. They're killing me. So like, there's no purpose to it. And he's like, no, we've got time. You can think about it. You don't have to make a decision now. And I said to him, there is no decision. My husband was sitting next to me and he's just like nodding his head, and his favorite part of me is like leaving. So I'm not really sure. Sorry, it's a little bit wobbly, but I move too much. I'm on a bed. I'm a big girl. It's gonna bounce. Anyway, so he said, okay, if it was his wife, he would probably also hope that that's a decision she would take. So it was there. We decided there and then that's what's going to happen. And he set surgery for 3 weeks later. So it gave us time. So in that 3-week period, your life is sort of upside down. But because they had said that my cancer was so mild and was like sort of the beginning, they felt that I was going to be okay, that there was nothing to worry about. Anyway, I went in for my surgery. I don't remember much, obviously. I remember going in, being petrified and waking up. So we had also seen a plastic surgeon probably about a week before I went in, because we were thinking, okay, if we're going to remove the breast, then at least maybe do an instant reconstruction. So I saw somebody for that. So it was this guy he was going to be there with. They were both going to do the operation at the same time, and they were looking at 5 to 6 hours. So we were all happy with that. Day of the surgery came, and I woke up, and my husband was next to my bed, and he just blurted this out. He's just like, they couldn't do your boobs. There was constipations, complications. There we go, that's the word. There were complications. And I was like, okay, like my eyes are not even open yet. I'm feeling drowsy. I'm tired. I'm just like, where's the juice? And I looked down and I could see there was a bit of a bump, and I thought, like, something's there, so it can't be all bad. And that's it. I didn't cry. I wasn't upset. I didn't feel there was a loss. The pain wasn't too bad, actually. The pain was actually really bearable. The uncomfortable part is they have drains. So you have your mastectomy, which runs, I'm going to see if I can just show you. It runs from the side here that they cut you, and they cut you all the way across, and then they stop here in the middle, and then they start again from that side, and they cut you all the way across. So it's like halfway under your armpit, if you know what I mean. So they did that, and what happens is you land up with like a liquid that your body tries to send in abundance because it's trying to make you heal faster, called lymph fluid, I think it's called. Anyway, so you have drains. That was the worst. You have these pipes coming out of you on either side, busy getting rid of that liquid so it doesn't pool and cause swelling and stuff like that, because your body can't absorb it as quickly as what it's making it. So that was quite uncomfortable. There were a few funny stories there, but I was okay. I didn't have to take a lot of painkillers for me myself, and I was actually in the maternity side of the hospital, which probably for some people would be quite an emotional thing. I think especially if you're going through breast cancer and you haven't had kids, then I think that that's probably really the worst place for you to be. But I had my boys, and I wasn't ever planning on having more kids, so I didn't take it. I wasn't worried by it. In fact, it was actually kind of nice to know that there was new life around me. Anyway, I went to the bathroom once, and there was my neighbor. It was a lady in a private room, and I'd been up and down quite a bit, and I had a lot of visitors and stuff, and this guy, eventually I was like walking, shuffling with my little whatever that thing is that carries your bags, shuffling with that to the bathroom, and he turned around and he goes, "Hi, my wife is busy preparing for having her baby and stuff, and we were just wondering, like, you know, if this is your first time that you're pregnant, if you needed to speak to somebody, that you are welcome to come and talk to her. She's been through this before." And I was like, huh? Oh, okay, number one, I'm that fat that I look pregnant. I'm not small, so shot, dude. And then my husband pops up around the corner and goes, "She's just had fucking breast removed." So he was not happy at all. The poor guy was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and then he disappeared. I thought it was hilarious. Of course I did. My husband was like in a grump, because he's like, these people are so inconsiderate. How do you just go up to somebody and say stuff like this? But it was from a good place, you know what I mean? And at least I didn't look like somebody who was dying, but I did look like someone who was going to give birth. Anyway, went home and we waited for the results. I had to go and see I saw my GP, because I had to go in again because they check your wounds and stuff like that. Not the GP, the surgeon, general surgeon. So I had to go in, and he said to me that from the results and stuff, it looks like I'm stage 2, but we're still waiting on more information. So I was like, okay. And we ended up going to see the oncologist. So I remember going into the room with my husband, and we sat down, and it was my first time meeting this oncologist, and he looked at me and he was just like, okay, and he was reading through the notes, and he's like, okay, no, they found that your tumor was 7 centimeters and that it had spread to, they removed 18 of my lymphs, and it was present in 4 of those, I think it was 4 of my lymphs. So that means that it had started to spread, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm stage 3C. So again, I heard stage 3C, and literally, like somebody who was just sitting in front of me, he shrunk and he went very far away, and I could hear my heart in my ears, like kudu, kudu, kudu. And all I thought is, I'm gonna die. So I think that's the first thing you always hear, no matter what part of cancer you're on. So we went from me starting out with having fibroids to being told I have DCIS, which is a stage 0 cancer, to my surgeon thinking that I'm stage 2, to hearing I'm stage 3C, which is just before stage 4. And I'm like, how many ball blows can I take? Anyway, so we landed up being referred to an oncology unit in George. At the time we were living in Mossel Bay, and I went to George, and then we found out that my medical insurance is a load of shit. If you're in South Africa, please do not go with Infinity Health blindly. They helped for a lot of things, but they do not help you in the way that you think you're going to be helped when it comes to treatment, but that's a whole other story. Just make sure you have a medical aid. Insurance is not enough to get you through. My husband's family contributed for all my surgery because it wasn't going to get paid for. They paid for it, and then when I got to meet the oncologist and finding out the cost of treatment per treatment was going to be just over 8,000 Rand, I think, and that would have been 8 chemos, and then I would have to do radiation afterwards. So we landed up that we couldn't do it. We just didn't have the finances for that, so we landed up going via the government hospital, which people think that means you're going to be free. It's free, but it's not. We were still paying just under 3,000 Rand for every chemo, and you go every 3 weeks. Anyway, I ended up doing 4 rounds of Adriamycin Red Devil chemo. That chemo was quite hectic. I landed up having chemo brain, which was the worst part for me, which basically I was hanging up washing in the garden and I forgot what I was doing and I just stared into space, and I can't tell you how long I was there. There was nothing in my head. It was just mush. Literally, you feel like you're in this bubble, this constant bubble. Like when you have a fever, that feeling like everything is like distorted and far away, and that's how I felt. And it would be for, so you get your chemo and then you don't go for your chemo again for another 3 weeks. So basically, let's say I have my chemo on a Monday, by the Wednesday I'm starting to feel ill. So the day of the chemo and the day after the chemo, not so bad. Day 3 it starts to get worse. Day 4 and 5 are the worst. But my symptoms were very mild. I had to take a shit ton of steroids and Benadryls and all sorts of stuff. I was taking folic tablets and iron tablets and all sorts. And there was some nausea, but not too bad. There was a lot of foods that I couldn't see myself eating. It's kind of like when you're pregnant and your taste buds change. That's what it was like for me. There was a lot of stuff I didn't want to eat. But I was at a constant state of nausea, but I wasn't getting sick. I didn't have hectic side effects like some people have. My teeth didn't get sore. I didn't lose my nails or anything like that. There was a lot of acid in my body. I could feel physically there was a lot of acid, but yeah, you take medication for that. They give you a lot of medication. Anyway, I did 4 rounds of that. I did land up having, when my veins collapsed, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you, but if I do, nope, it doesn't look like it's going to come on the camera. I don't think so. Like if I... Never mind! I'll give up on that. Anyway, and I also lost my baby. But I have a little visitor next to me. So I'm nice and stark. Anyway, I'll just carry on from here quickly because I'm not going to do another whole long thing. Basically, my veins started to, they harden and they basically look like they collapsed in, which is really weird. That happened a lot. Fuck, which side is the camera? I don't know. Anyway, so the veins sort of started collapsing, and I just, you know, that the more you do, the worse it felt. But one of the things that nobody seems to really mention about chemo is the fact that the day I get chemo, for the next few days, nobody else can use the toilet that I use. I have to clean that toilet down after every single pee, because the chemo that they give you, it can hurt them, you know, it can make them sick. So that was like something that really stuck with me. The other thing, there's so many things I'm actually missing out on now that I think back, but I suppose I can't cover everything. If there's questions, just send me questions and I'll answer them. But I landed up, I forgot what I was going to say. What was I saying? I was talking about the veins collapsing, all that stuff. Anyway, I did 4 of those. This is chemo brain for you. It's like walking into a room. It's not good. Anyway, I did the 4 Adriamycin. I had to take a lot of medication. With every single Red Devil chemo that I had, I put on 5 kilos. Like clockwork. You could tell. It wasn't on the first day, it wasn't on the second day, but on the third day, 5 days higher. 5 kilograms higher, not 5 days, 5 kilos higher. And it happened every single time. So by the end of just the 4 cycles, I'd already put on like 23 kilos or something like that. So yeah, that was really not nice. I had a whole big moon face, a whole lot. My hair fell out on exactly day 14. Like I had shaved my head. I still keep my hair in the undercut, but I had shaved my head till quite short by then. By I think it was day 12, I got my husband to do it. Day 14, if I did this, because your hair gets so thin, because basically everything dies when you get given. Oh, that's what I was talking about. People using your water, using your toilets and stuff like that. They can't bath in the water you bath in. There's all those things. There's a lot of people don't realize just how toxic it is. The chemo. But anyway. Moving on now, day 14, your hair falls out. Literally, you do this, and it just falls away, and you don't feel it. It feels like such a feathery feeling. It's really weird, but it's gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. I was not too traumatized by that because I was prepared for it. But sorry, my hands. But my husband was quite traumatized by it because he's the one who had to shave my head. And then when my hair fell out, my son kept telling me my head is ugly. Shot. But it was. I bought wigs. I shouldn't have wasted my money because I think I wore them maybe 4 times. They make your head really, really itchy and hot and uncomfortable, and I didn't like it. So I wore these like chemo caps quite a lot, which in itself is also not very attractive, but according to my 4-year-old at the time, my head is ugly. And then I started another chemo called paclitaxel, which is part of the taxane chemo. So those come from tree sap. And I had a severe allergic reaction. I stopped breathing. So in a government hospital filled with people I don't know, my husband and my son my husband could be there with me, but we had a child, and he wasn't in school, and he was our responsibility. So my husband didn't come in. Kids are not allowed, and I wouldn't let my child go in there either, especially if you can't even use a bathroom, and risk them like that. So I didn't want to do that well, you can't. Even if you want to, you can't. So I didn't want to. But literally the IV went in, and within 2 minutes I couldn't breathe, and they had to take it out, and they called the GP, and they flooded me with Benadryl and stuff like that, and I was okay, but they made me come back the next day after having taken a ridiculous amount of steroids and Benadryl, and then they started the chemo. So where maybe it would have been like a 3-hour chemo, they started at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Man, need to stay away from that side. They started at 7 o'clock in the morning, and then I was there until 5 o'clock, and they did 7 liters of saline with it. So tiny little 500ml bag, 7 liters of saline just to get it in. Let me tell you, that was the worst flipping chemo. Everybody talks about the Red Devil being bad. Let me tell you, it was tolerable compared to the paclitaxel for me. I landed up having the worst, most painful bone pain. I cried. I wanted to die. I literally was like, please just take me. I can't take this anymore. All the painkillers in the world couldn't get rid of it. Literally, it felt like somebody was drilling in the bones, the center of my arms and my legs. It was so sore. Luckily, I think it was by day 4, it had started to go away. But then neuropathy kicked in. Now, neuropathy is that pins and needles feeling that you get. I had that in half of my body. It was like in my skull here, like if I touched it, it was pins and needles. Half my face, half of my palate, my mouth. I looked like my mouth was like a little bit, looked like a stroke. Somebody who had had a stroke. Was in my hands, all my fingers, my feet, up my arms, the whole lot. And that pretty much stayed until the next time I saw my oncologist. And I told him, and he said to me, your reaction is too severe. We can't do another one because any damage from the chemo, that neuropathy, might be irreversible, because I was still feeling it. It is now 4 years down the line, and I still have numbness in these two these two fingers down the side of my hand, and it goes up into the sides of my fingers where it's quite sore. And then if I use it too much, then basically all the fingers start going, and then I still have it in my feet a little bit. If I do a lot of walking, I can feel in the middle of my feet and my heels start to go numb. But compared to what it was, I'll take this any day. Anyway, they then wanted me to do, I chose to stop chemo then. I felt like I'd asked them, like, how do we know that I still need more chemo? And they're like, this is the standard course of treatment. And I was like, okay, but like, how do I know it's beneficial? And they're like, if there is a rogue cancer cell, it will kill that. And I'm like, but do we know what my cancer count is? And he was like, they weren't very helpful. I feel like this is what they're told to do. People with breast cancer, my kind, because mine is a hormonal cancer. I have estrogen receptor positive, progesterone receptor positive, and then I have something called HER2. And HER2, what it does is it takes the cancer cells and it duplicates them. So 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. So it's an extremely aggressive cancer. But the nice thing about my cancer is there's a lot of studies into it, and because it's hormone driven, they can give you medication to try and suppress it. So there's that positive side of it. But like, they weren't giving me information. I'm like, how do I know I need to carry on with this? And he couldn't tell me. And I was like, you know what? Right now, the risks of what's happening to my body felt like they outweighed what more I could get from it. So that was my decision. I chose to stop. They then asked me if I wanted to do radiation. Now, because it's in the government system here in South Africa, the only place that does radiation, as far as I know, via the government in the Western Cape, I was told, is at Groote Schuur, now, which was in Cape Town. We lived in Mossel Bay. Cape Town is like 4.5 hours away. I was like, okay. They wanted me to come for treatment for 8 weeks. So every single day I'd have radiation for 8 weeks, and I'd have to find somewhere to stay here. So that means I'd have to leave my kids, because my husband couldn't leave his job. My kids were at school. And I was like, but what if this is all the time that I have? 8 weeks is 2 months. I cannot be away from my family for that long. So in my mind, I was like, they can't tell me that it's going to benefit me or that I have cancer right now or anything. So like, what's the point of carrying on with it? So I made a decision on my own to stop. So I stopped radiation. I didn't even start radiation, but I stopped the process of applying for radiation. And I left, and they gave me a hormone suppressant tablet called tamoxifen, which I was on, but I wasn't very regular with it. I have to say I actually wasn't very good with it at all. And then we landed up moving to Cape Town that December. So I then moved my treatment over to Cape Town, but I think it took about a year before I even saw an oncologist. The reason being is because the medical insurance I cancelled because they're a lot of crap, and I went on to a medical aid, and they have a year period where you're not allowed to where you get an exclusion period. So if the fact that I have breast cancer, I had a year exclusion period where I couldn't claim for that, which is perfectly understandable. But anyway, so that was the initial story. I did land up, because I wasn't able to have the reconstruction at the time, because it had spread and they wanted to first get me through treatment, I had skin sparring. So what they did is when they removed all the breast tissue, they left enough skin that they could put an implant in eventually. So I just had these like little saggy tea bags, but they were okay, they weren't so bad, they were tolerable. Then when we moved to Cape Town, I think we were here about a year, and then I started the process of reconstruction. My reconstruction is an above muscle, because I had enough skin, because I had such big boobs, I had enough skin that they could just put the implants in. So I actually had a very easy surgery with that. A lot of people would say, why did I bother? The one thing that I think a lot of people may or may not realize is that even though I didn't have an emotional attachment to my breasts, or it's not a sexual thing, I did have boob envy. Literally, everybody who walked past me, I was like, oh, they have boobs, look at the boobs. Man boobs, let me tell you. Jealous, man boobs. I'm like, he's got the best boobs. Like, I had little teabag sacks with this whole lopsided cut and stuff like that. I was like, meh. So when I got my reconstruction, I was actually very happy. Look, it's not perfect. I don't have nipples. I have scars. I'll show you. Don't worry, I'm not going to flash everything. But if you look there, you can see there's a bit of a scar. So basically, the scar runs all the way across to under my armpit, which, whoops, I don't know if you can see. It's already faded. You can see how far back it goes. So it's still there. And then it comes all the way around. And then I have my implants. So they work, they're fine, they are numb. I don't have feeling. A lot of people have asked me, why don't I go and get the nipple tattoos? I feel I don't have nipples. Don't have them. So for me to put them on feels, for me personally, I don't see the need in it, because I think that will make me more sad to see the fact that I have visually I have something that I cannot physically touch. So for me, I personally don't want that, but I know of a lot of women who have had their areola tattooed on, and for them it completes them. So it is weird to look in the mirror, and I just have, because my scars are not so bad, as you can see, they've faded and they've healed really well. I just kind of look like a little Barbie doll, who has a scar across the chest. A scarred Barbie doll. But, I'm happy with that. You wouldn't know that I had breast surgery unless I take my top off. Lucky for you. I didn't share the world all of this. But yeah, so that was the first journey. I went for regular checkups every 6 months. I would go and see my GP, and she does tumor marker blood tests, and she would go send me for a scan once a year. I took my medication religiously, because there was once that I actually wasn't taking it, and I went to see her, and whoo-hoo, let me tell you, my new well, she's not new anymore, but at the time she was new. She berated me, and I loved it. I'm a very stubborn person. I feel that my way is the right way, and I don't necessarily listen to other people. I'm kind of like, I'll go with what I feel is right, which is what I did with the chemo and the radiation. In hindsight, maybe that wasn't the right thing, but it also might have been worse for me. You can't live in the what ifs. That's for sure. Anyway, she berated me, and I have never missed any of my medication since then, because she put the fear of hell in me. Thanks, doctor. But anyway, I'm going to do another video, maybe just now. I'll see. Maybe I'll change where I'm at. I think you might be a bit bored of the bed. But anyway, so that's the last journey. It's very hard to cram everything in, because there was a lot that went on in that time. There were a lot more side effects. There was a lot that went on emotionally, for me and my kids and my husband. The person who was affected the worst the first time around was my husband, and I didn't know it at all at the time, because the thing is, our husbands don't want to tell us just how much it hurts them to see us like that. And I think that's the thing. Why a lot of men leave their wives when we go through this. Maybe even vice versa. When men go through it, that women probably leave them too, because they can't cope with it. And it's really difficult. Not try being the person who's got it. You know, it's like, it is not an easy journey for anybody to go through. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, even pedophiles or whatever. As much as I dislike them, what it does to your family and how it affects everybody is beyond comprehension, I think. I had an extremely positive outlook the first time around. I didn't cry. Almost never cried, and that's because everybody else around me felt like they were doing all my crying for me. I had at the time, a good support system. I had a lot of fake for people that came out and said they cared, but they didn't stick around. Initially they were there, I think, to make themselves feel like they were doing something for someone. But when I got to the end of my journey, those people weren't there anymore, and they weren't checking in on me. So if you do go through this journey, just know whoever you start out with, that's not that there are going to be people who are going to be by your side that you never expected. People are going to either go above and beyond, and the people that you're going to expect it from might just be the people that pull away. So if you're a very emotional person, you've been given some warning. The only people I needed was my family. I did have, don't get me wrong, I had a few good friends that were there for me throughout, and I'll forever be grateful for them, because they made it a lot easier. It was easier to laugh and joke and have the support when I needed it, and people who would fetch my kids if I needed it, and that really helped. But yeah, I will do a video of how it's going so far with this treatment, maybe today. Try and get full use out of the makeup. But yeah, thank you so much. Sorry that I babble. See, I told you people I talk a lot. But as it goes, because these are full stories of what's going on, they will be a bit longer. As we go, I will try and keep my videos a little bit less chatty. Yeah, so if there are any questions or anything like that after you've listened to this, or there's anything you want to know, please just fire away. I will always do my best to reply. I'll always be honest. I'm not emotional at the moment. Today's actually a bit of a good day, actually, but I'm not emotional about the stuff that happened before. I'm more emotional about sort of things that are going on now. But yeah, I have to go make my kids some lunch. Hubby has gone into the office today, so he's not here. Normally he works from home, so there's a lot of things that make this whole thing easier because they are around. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. Bye.